Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I am your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, it's been about 3 weeks since I've been on. I'm glad to be back home, glad to be back in the studio. And guys, it's going to be an amazing episode with my friend Jonathan. We're going to be talking about how to become a resilient man or woman, but mostly we're talking to men. And he's an amazing podcast host. He's a speaker. He does it all. He's been through hell and back, including prison, drug addiction, having to deal with suicides. So this is going to be a really deep conversation, and you're going to learn a lot from this. So make sure you subscribe, click that notification bell, because you're going to want to save this and share it out to somebody, because somebody might need to hear this today. Jonathan, my brother, welcome to the show.
What's up, man? Thank you so much for having me, man. I'm like pumped after that intro. That was badass, dude.
Yeah, I got some great people that do our graphics, so I'm very grateful. So before I even forget, the first question I ask is, what is your definition of resiliency?
You know, the further I've gone in my journey in life, I've come to the conclusion that I think resiliency is a skill. I mean, I think that, you know, you're born with a certain amount of it, but I think it's something you can absolutely build. So I like to say it's the reservoir of strength that you pull from in times of adversity.
I love it. I love it. So now we're going to hop back in the Wayback Machine. So tell us a little bit about where'd you come from, where'd you grow up, and what kind of little kid was Jonathan?
Yeah, man. So my parents had me really young. Mom was 16, dad 17. Born in South Atlanta, so that was back in 1980. So you can imagine, you know, not really much support from anyone from their end. And they divorced by the time I was 2, I'm pretty sure. So and I never really got to experience my mom and dad being together. You know, my earliest memories are memories of me as a kid, you know, really kind of trying to figure things out on my own, because either you know, my mom was laying on like the bed, the mattress or whatever all day, and I was trying to, you know, make me some soup or something, or even a memory of my mom leaving me overnight at around 7 or 8 years old, to watch my toddler sister and another kid. And this is before cell phones, so like, and this kid happened to spray my sister with pepper spray, and my memory goes to her in the tub, me panicking, trying to figure things out. So, you know, kind of forced into life pretty early on. Never got to really experience much of a childhood, I don't think. Ended up with dad, and once I got to dad's, things kind of settled in. They worked, and they every day we ate. Everything was, you know, fairly normal. The streets of South Atlanta were kind of rough. You know, the area we grew up in was pretty rough. You know, gangsters were idolized, drug dealers were idolized. That's who we wanted to be. You know, started drinking at, I think I drank my first 40 before I was 10, and I smoked weed for the first time right around 12. So I was just kind of normal, though. Honestly, it wasn't even that big of a deal. Kind of fast forward through high school, which was fairly normal. A lot of partying and a lot of drugs and stuff, but just normal high school stuff. Managed to graduate, and when I graduated and moved out, got married, or had my first daughter, had my son, got married, and then right in that time is when my life kind of got flipped upside down, and the addictions really just basically took over my life. Spent those years as just pathological liar running the streets. So
Now let's hop in, you know, to get a little bit deeper, because, you know, I grew up parents of my mother was an addict. But for me, books became my way of dealing with issues when I was a kid. So I love to read, because it took me somewhere else. So what were some of the things what were some of your coping mechanisms as a young child?
Well, that's a really good question. You know, I haven't really ever thought about it and put myself back in that place. You know, as I got a little older, and you know, when I say older, like 7, 8, 9, you know, once I was with dad, we definitely, me and my best friend, we definitely had the imagination, and we ran around, and we would pack our little lunch and play like war all day, and like not come home and, eat a bologna sandwich and run around in camouflage. I mean, we definitely had an active imagination. Um, so maybe that was part of it, trying to kind of escape reality. But back on those early years, man, I really haven't thought about it.
All right, so now like I didn't think I was ever going to live past the age of 25. I never pictured I'd even be alive at this point. I was just an addict running the streets, trying to get high or get drunk whenever I can. So, is that the same way you were experiencing,
Yeah,
teenagehood and going through high school?
I mean, through high school was probably the only time in my life that I would say I was pretty like socially normal, kind of running around with the cool kids in the middle of everything. Um, it was just one big party, one big blur. Got into like some hallucinogens, and those things got really popular. Um, I would say that when I really started like numbing and like running from reality was right after I had my first daughter and got married and had my son. Had all that happened like in a 2 year span, and I absolutely did not know how to be a man or how to be a parent or how to be an adult at all. So I think that was part of the reason that I turned to drugs so heavily. Um, is just, didn't know how to be one, didn't want to figure it out at that point. So instead, I just, ran around kind of numb and withdrawn.
All right, so like for me, I knew that m- my come to Jesus moment was when I was looking at 5 years for grand larceny. But God, by the grace of God, I didn't go to jail. But you actually did go to jail. You actually did go do some time. So talk to us about that. Now you're a father. You got a kid. You got a wife, but you're hitting the streets even harder than when you were single. So tell us about that lifestyle.
Yeah. So through my 20s, as a new father and a new husband, I absolutely would go to work. Um, and then get off and not really say where I was or what time I was getting off. And I would go back and run the streets that I grew up on, or sometimes I wouldn't even work and I would say I was at work, doing the same thing, running those streets that I grew up on. Um, those 10 years were, I mean, I was not a good person at all. Had foreclosure, repossession, taking money that was supposed to be used on bills and using it for my addiction. Um, I got introduced to meth right around 21, 22, kind of in that same little time period. Um, and when that happened, things really kind of turned sideways pretty quick. And like I said, and then pain pills on top of that. It was really just a smorgasbord of whatever. Never really that much of a drinker, but meth and pain pills were the two biggest things. And once I kind of got introduced to those, um, I had no self control, and like I said, I was just not a very good person at all. And you never got a straight answer from me. And then as I've gotten older and kind of gotten out of that and reflect on it, it was honestly a lot of the things that I learned from my mom. She was very deceitful as well. You never got a straight answer from her, and there was always an ulterior motive, pretty much to like everything she did. And that's the same person that I kind of turned into in my 20s. Um, so like fast forward to about 10 solid years of this with my first wife, and she finally had enough, and right around 30 she divorced me. And I would say like with my kids and like stuff, I was a good like day to day, like from the outside looking in, a good dad. Coached my son's baseball team. Like I definitely like taught him right from wrong, like a lot of things that I wasn't doing or whatever, but I still kind of like taught him that. So in my mind, when she divorced me, I was like, I'm the good dad, and she wouldn't let me see my kids. In hindsight, it was absolutely the right thing to do, but in the moment, it was like a pity party, and I was like, I may have screwed up in every other area, but I'm a good dad, and that piece like propelled me harder to get to the point where I honestly didn't care if I lived or died. I mean, I really didn't care what happened to me. Running around, living in hotels, not have anywhere to live, just living wherever I could crash, basically homeless. Kind of became the right hand man of a local drug dealer. Even got introduced to needles with meth in this time, and when that happened, it spiraled, and within just a few months, I was sitting in a jail cell staring at a 15-5.
So, what was your relationship with your mother and father at this point?
So with my mom, just kind of in and out of my life, just I'd see her on some weekends, and she kind of got straightened out for I don't know, 8 or 9, maybe even 10-year stretch, when she was married to a certain guy, in her life. So like I developed kind of a relationship, and honestly, my mom, as screwed up as she was, she kind of understood me a little bit. She understood that addiction and that monster that you have inside of you. So I could kind of relate to her. So as screwed up as she was and stuff, it was she was one of the people that actually I felt like kind of understood who I was. And my dad, at that point, up until just a few months before when I really hit the streets hard, it was a fairly normal relationship with them, with my dad and stepmom and my brothers and all that. Then I just kind of disappeared. Once the divorce happened and I hit the streets, I literally, like, nobody knew where I was or anything. So I just kind of disappeared for a couple of years before I ended up in prison. But pretty normal-ish relationship. They were tired of being lied to and tired of all of the crap, just like my wife was at the time was. So
All right, so tell us, because a lot of people will see, you have you're a great father, you're a great family man, you have a great business going now, you got an amazing podcast, guys. If you get a chance, check out the Resilient Man podcast, amazing podcast. But they don't see the shit that you went through. Everybody, they don't see. They think that everything is unicorns and rainbows. So
yeah.
tell about how you got locked up and what it was like getting locked up.
So yeah, it was a reality check. It was a dose of reality. It was a dose of reality. It was maybe for the first time in like 15 years that I was completely sober for and still, and with my own thoughts, and forced really to reflect on the person that I had become. Um, you hear those prison doors clink, 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 slam, and it's a dose of reality. And then the judge hits you with something like a 15-5. You know, um,
Now, what did you get locked up for?
it was just all drug related stuff. Just it was. I, I met this, like, she was 10 years younger than me, dancer or whatever, and was running the streets, and she had a brilliant plan, and it's a whole story. But the charge ended up was burglary. It was for going in and taking a ring that this guy had proposed to her to propose to her with. Like I said, I'd probably been up for 2 weeks at that point or something like that, with maybe no sleep. Um, so yeah,
Now,
that's what it was.
like, sitting in jail, like, I know, like, when I got clean, I just hit 34 years. Um, my body just went haywire once I couldn't have any drugs or alcohol in me. So, what was it like going cold turkey in prison off of everything you've been doing for the last 10 or 15 years?
It was hell on earth. It was just the most, you know, excruciating thing that I've ever experienced. And I think you multiply that by like being in a little bitty box, not being able to really do anything. And I probably slept for like a good solid week. Um, it was just, It was horrible, absolutely horrible. I mean, they give you a little bit of something or whatever along the way to help you sleep. Um, and I never forget, like, kind of coming out of it, even the little meal, that they prepare there for you, like taking a bite of like cabbage, and I could almost like feel the nutrients, running through my body because it had been so long since I had anything like that.
All right, so now, like, I was a corrections officer for a while, and I realized at that time that people go two ways when they go to jail. Either they learn to be a better criminal, or they decided, you know what, I'm done. I'm not coming back. I've had it. My life is at the pits, and I don't want to become, somebody that just keeps coming back to jail at time after time. So, which way did you go? Did you become a better criminal, or you said, "I've had it. I'm done"?
I'll tell you a story. I was at diagnostics, which is where you go before you go to your long term facility. Kind of go and you do your IQ test and you do your height and weight and go dental. You just kind of like almost like an intake. And I was there for about a month, and that was honestly the worst place that I was. It was really really bad, and they kind of lump everybody with everybody. So I'm just hanging out playing cards with these guys that I've met, because they just kind of hang hang out with whoever. I'm sorry, man. Ashton, please go upstairs. Go. I was not expecting him to be home. Can you edit that out? Jeez, man.
Don't worry. My daughter does it all the time.
Yeah, he wasn't supposed to be home this early. Really, some of this stuff he doesn't know. So, um, anyway, I was playing cards with these guys. Like I said, just kind of take to whoever will hang out with you when you're in that situation. And throughout the game of spades, I learned that the guy to my right was in for murder, and the guy to my left was in for rape. And I'll never forget that night, just sitting on my bunk looking around and saying, like, I don't know much, but like I know that this is not a place for me. This is not um, the people that I want to be around. This is not where I want to spend any more time once I get through this thing. So I decided pretty early on that I wouldn't be back, and I would say that I kind of carried myself even pretty much as soon as I kind of came out of that haze. I kind of carried myself as with a lot of integrity, even inside. Like I made this change inside and become the guy that would like hold the money for the poker game, and just the kind of the guy that everybody knew that, if I said something that it was going to happen or that I meant it, just a trustworthy person, even in there. And I've tried to carry that from that point on. And I think a lot of that integrity now and honesty now is like probably the most important things to me. And I think it's because I spent so much time the polar opposite, and understand the damage and the destruction and and how hard it is to repair, your reputation. Like I understand, like, I see it completely different. So I made the decision pretty early on. I didn't want to come back, and I started carrying myself, pretty much from the time I woke up, like the man that I wanted to be instead of the man I had been.
Now, did you start going to programs? Did you start reading a lot? And tell us, because a lot of people we make the jokes about how you see these guys or girls that are on meth and their faces are messed up, their teeth is all jacked up. Is that a real thing, or is that just something you see on TV?
No, it's absolutely a real thing. I think it's you stay up for days and weeks on end, so you never get in a routine of getting up and brushing your teeth and taking care of yourself because it's all just one big day. I think that's part of it, and then you grind your teeth in a certain point, just depending on kind of how it affects you. But it's definitely a thing. I don't know. I have really good teeth, I guess. I managed to keep mine pretty straight, but I guess it wasn't really that long of a bender. But yeah, that's really bad for your bones and your teeth. Man, it's horrible. Sores and all kinds of stuff. It affects everybody differently, and I guess it depends on where you're getting it from and what all extra chemicals are in it and stuff. But I've seen that stuff do some major damage. Major damage.
Now, did your mom and dad come around while you got locked up?
Yeah, they did. Didn't really like come to visit, but I got some letters and stuff. I had one grandmother that especially when I was in county before I got shipped off, that came like every Sunday. And then once I got towards the back end to a transitional center, where you could leave on Sundays and kind of have a job, uh, and then you have a job through the week, and then you get to leave on Sundays. I had an aunt and uncle that would drive like 30 minutes to pick me up, and then drive like 45 minutes to church, and then drive me back. Like they spent their whole Sunday basically driving me around every day. I mean, every week, just to know that, just to let me know that there are people out there that loved and cared about me, and also to to build that foundation of faith that I built. And I didn't really touch on that on the first, in the beginning, but as I came out of that haze within a few weeks, I was walking around the little track in the day room. I had my $15 Jailhouse radio on, and just happened to kind of turn it on a Christian station, and sat down under these payphones where you make your little, 15-minute phone call or whatever. And I'll never forget it. Like the sun came through the window over the little guard thing, and this song by Mercy Me came on called "The Hurt and the Healer," and I felt like his presence even in there. It's like he found me even in there, just, and gave me some comfort, and that kind of carried me. I started going to the church services there. I even got baptized in the slop sink in the prison, and then them picking me up on Sundays and really, taking me to church and stuff, man. By the time I got out, like I was like openly praising Christ in church, during worship. And before prison, like I'd never been a spiritual person really at all. Never been to church consistently at all. So yeah.
All right. So then, because now I definitely want to hop talk. I want to talk about the difference between religion and jailhouse religion, and then I want to talk about you getting out. But before we do that, I want to thank our sponsors. As you guys know, in jail, in the military, their coffee tastes horrible, tastes nasty, and I always loved coffee, but I couldn't find one that gave me the energy I needed but tasted good. So I came out with my own. It's called Vertical Momentum Coffee. It's all veteran hand roasted by United States veterans' hands, and 100% of the proceeds go to help veterans struggling with homelessness and PTSD. I don't make any money off of it. It all goes to them. So if you love coffee with a mission, write coffee down below, and I'll get it to you. Also, like we were talking with my friend Eric, if you guys want to start your own podcast, if you want to monetize it, you want to make money off of it, you want to even get famous or get rich off of it, he will teach you how to do that. And so if you just write podcast down below, I'll get that information to you. So now, like I said, when I was in jail, I seen a lot of people get jailhouse religion, and all of a sudden they get paroled on a Friday, Saturday night, they're out at the club, forgetting about God, forgetting about Jesus, and it's just they only did it to get out, maybe go to church, go to some programs, and get out a little bit early. But for you, it seems it took, right?
Yeah, you're right. That's definitely a thing, and I would say like even inside, there's certain people that kind of use that as like kind of like their identity in prison. You know what I mean? And I definitely have seen a lot of that. But it absolutely stuck with me. And as we get into my story, like it really, like I think developing that foundation is probably the reason that I'm sitting here talking to you today.
So, you've been locked up. What'd you do? 3.5 years, something like that?
Yeah, I ended up doing 3. Mm-hmm.
So what is it like hearing the doors close behind you, and you're outside and you're seeing sunlight and you're actually a free man? What did that feel like at that moment?
Man, there's no words to describe it. it's, just to be able to go eat regular food and like give, I think one thing that I really missed in prison was giving someone a hug. Like I really just want to give somebody a hug. So, just getting out and being able to hug your family and hug your kids and things like that. Man, there's no words to describe it.
All right. So now, because I think, military prison is kind of like, it's the same thing when we get out. It's kind of like now you're out of prison or out of jail and you're still a father. You still got to make money, but all of a sudden you have ex-con on your resume. And not a lot of places are willing to give second chances. So what was it like getting out and trying to become a responsible father and a man, but still having to deal with that ex-con on your resume?
Yeah, I would say I'm in a very, very small percentile of people that I was able to secure a job even before I left, in that transitional center, making like $8 an hour. Um, and I'd already, any job I'd ever had, even as screwed up as I was, I, worked my way to the top pretty quickly, just kind of a natural leader and a pretty bright guy. Um, I was able to take an $8 job and then as soon as I was released, pretty much get promoted into a sales position. Which I'd never really done sales before, and I was just a natural, just gifted at sales. And within like a year, I was breaking every company sales record, outselling the owner. Like I said, I went from $8 an hour to six figures, like in my second year, to $250,000 a year, within 5 years or so after that, all working for other people. So I found it much easier than probably 99.9% of the people. It was just blessed, fortunate situation, and landed in the right spot. It's something that I happen to be really, really good at.
All right. So then, because I was in high ticket sales for a long time, and I would say at least 75% of the people I work with, they were either coked up, cracked up, alcoholic because of the hours that we worked for the expectations. We all wanted the car, we all wanted the house, we all wanted the boat, but we all had to take something to keep us going at that level. So how did you not go back to the dope man while being successful, while you having a lot of money to play with?
The biggest thing is I completely changed my surroundings and I moved to a whole different area, a whole different part of the state, and didn't have contact with anybody that I'd ever known before, other than a little bit of family. I think it's one of the reasons I probably don't have very many friends now. Really, is just because I left everybody behind and kind of started completely over. And our sales were a little different too. I was selling, flooring work, like the same thing to the company that I own now. So I was selling that, and then you had to kind of like manage the project as well. So it was not just sales; it was like sales, title, project management, and it's big, 20,000 to $250,000 to $500,000 jobs set, in one sale, depending on the situation. So. I just found that I had this like unique ability to connect with people and I cared about them and I cared about the work. And, to me, that's what sales is, man. It's relationships, it's building relationships and letting people know that you care about what you're doing for them, as much as anything. And sometimes you just go and kind of talk about what they got going on in their family. And that's in my opinion, that's the key. And that's the secret to sales is becoming one, with the person that you're selling to or talking to, and they're not really clients or whatever. They become friends, and that's kind of been the secret to my success, really.
All right, now, like I said, I've been in recovery since 1989, and I moved away, and like I did the same thing as you did, and because I always realized that if I'm going to be successful, I had to get away from people, places, and things. But unfortunately, a lot of times, if you do move somewhere else where you don't know anybody, you are still taking you with you while you go there. So it's, in order to get clean, I think clean and sober, it's an inside job. You got to change from the inside out. So talk to us a little bit about that. You know, because I'm a big believer in changing your habits. My friend James Clear wrote an amazing book called Atomic Habits, and I believe everything is habits. So talk to us about when you got out of jail, how you had to change your habits to change your life. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I actually relapsed, within my first year of getting out. So let me just kind of finish up the story a little bit. So I get out of prison. I've been out for, I don't know, a couple of weeks, and I'm sitting in the break room at the place that I work, that same place where I started at $8 an hour. I wasn't in sales yet. I was a supervisor or something like that at this point. And I get a phone call, and it's my sister, and she just says, "It's mom. It's not good. Get to the hospital." So I get to the hospital, and my mom is overdosed. And for a week, she laid there with her eyes rolled in the back of her head and her mouth kind of hanging wide open, almost like a severe stroke victim. So, I mean, it was really bad. I feel like I almost willed her and prayed her through it because I had missed so much time with her. I'd just gotten out, and I was like, God, please don't like let it end like this. She pulls through. Um, and I was able to separate her from my sister and her boyfriend because like them three together was just not, it was very toxic. It was just not, it was a recipe for disaster. So I got to get her in her own apartment away from them. And she's doing pretty good at this point. I'm actually starting to see glimpses kind of my mom when she was at her best. Um, she got her apartment. She's like proud of it. She's just kind of really building some momentum. And I'm sitting on her back porch with her. I check on her every day at my lunch break. It's like she's like 10 minutes from work. And it's my sister, and she's like, "Mom, me and Sean need a place to stay. Can we come home, or can we come stay with you for a couple of weeks?" And I happen to be there, and she kind of mutes the phone and tells me what's going on. I'm like, "Mom, like you just overdosed. Like you can barely take care of yourself. This is not. It's not. She's grown. She's in her. At this point, she's pushing 30. She needs to figure this out for herself." So that's what she tells her. Um, she stands strong, and I think it's the right decision. I think it's what had to happen. But then about not even a month later, it's 7 o'clock in the morning, and my aunt calls me, and and it's my mom's sister, and I rarely ever hear from her. It was 7 o'clock in the morning. She was calling. I kind of knew instantly something was wrong. I answered the phone, and she just says, "It's Christina. She's overdosed, and she didn't make it. She passed away in some motel room in Atlanta." So I kind of found myself, driving 30 minutes to my mom, trying to hold myself together, kind of carrying that weight already of should I have let her, should maybe if I'd have let her come home, this wouldn't have happened. And kind of trying to stay strong because I knew that I was about to deliver the news that would, devastate what was left of my mom. Wake my mom up. She makes eye contact with me. And before I even say anything, she just starts going, "Oh, no, not Christina. Oh, no, not Christina." And I could barely get out the words, "Yeah, mom, she didn't make it." And it was really bad, obviously. I say that was the worst day of my life. Um, so, you know, we get through that, get through the service. Um, and my mom's obviously never the same. Her lifetime of substance abuse and pills, and then she would mix it with heavy drinking, Xanax, pain pills, and heavy drinking. And she basically kind of became mentally insane for the lack of a better word. Um, some days she'd be okay. Some days she'd just sit and cry. Some days she wouldn't get out of bed. Some days I would sit outside of her door and listen to her scream at no one and have these like vile arguments with ghosts. I mean, she was literally argue with the demons in her head. So this went on, I even tried to get her to move in with me. I'd get her in my house, and she I'd go to work and she'd just leave, and there's nothing really that I could do. So we kind of continued that cycle for a few months, probably 4 or 5 months, somewhere in there. And I go to check on my mom I texted her a few times and she didn't text me back that morning, which is, fairly normal because, like I said, some days she just wouldn't get out of bed. So I go to check on her and I knock. No one answers. And knock again. No one answers. And I turn to walk away, and I take a couple steps. I'm like, maybe the door's unlocked. The door's never unlocked, but I checked it and it was. Turned the knob on the door handle, pushed the door open, and my mom's apartment is completely trashed. TV busted, pictures off the wall. It looked like, honestly, like in prison, they're come and toss our cells and stuff. Like, that's what it looked like. I looked down the hall, and all I can see is my mom's feet run back there, and my mom is suicide by overdose, and she's cold, and close her eyes and kiss her forehead, and pick up some of the pain pills that were laying on the floor, throw them in my mouth, and go outside to call 911, and spent the next 3 or 4 months kind of, honestly headed back down the same path that landed me in prison. And then by the grace of God, that foundation of faith that I built, that strength that I built inside, was able to come to my senses and tell my wife, sit my wife down and tell her, hey, since Mom, this has been going on and I need help, So she gives me the help. We kind of get in touch with some people that can help me, give me some help, and was able to move on past it from that point on. But
so now I know that for me, my come to Jesus moment was 9/11, September 11, 2001. Changed my life and changed my whole family's life. So take us to that, because everybody I know that's gotten clean and changed their life, they remember the exact moment when they said, okay, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. What was that moment for you?
So to get off of the pain pills, I kind of took the medicine that's supposed to help you get off or whatever for like a month. And even that was kind of becoming a little bit of a problem, to be honest. So, my wife got to the point where I'll never forget it. We were sitting on our bedroom floor. It was the Saturday of Labor Day weekend. And I could just tell that she was, no matter all the crap that I've been through, like she just was not, she was done. This is not the path that she wanted to leave. And I sat and I looked in her eyes and I said, babe, I promise you, it's over. It is done.
Now, how many years ago was this?
5, right at 5, a little less than 5.
All right. So now you decide to get clean, but unfortunately, even though we decide to get clean, we still got to start clearing up some of the wreckage of the past before we can move on to the future. Because, us addicts, I'm saying me included, we burn a lot of bridges, piss a lot of people off, have bad reputations, and it's hard to start rebuilding yourself. And even though that I'm not the same guy anymore, people will still see the same Jonathan, even though you're not that old person anymore. So what was that like, turning your life around, but even still people walking past you, people still knowing you, thinking that you're still the same guy?
I mean, really since prison, like I never really had to deal with too much of that. I had those drastic changes, and I think everybody kind of understood the few months relapse based on everything that I'd kind of just had gone through with losing my sister and then finding my mom. So I don't think that I really had to deal with too much of that then. I will say, since I've started Resilient, man, I've kind of had some mud slung at me. I guess, people kind of can find you online. But in my day-to-day life, man, I really haven't had to deal with it. Like I said, I cut everyone that I'd ever known out of my life, except for my close family. And I completely started over. Um, but I'll tell you, when getting out, that thing caught up with me. It felt like once a year, the felony and the addiction thing. Like I would try to do something and I couldn't do it because I was a felon. Kept getting reminded, up just until maybe the last 3 or 4 years, it's kind of stopped. But every year I felt like I would get reminded of that person that I used to be. For some reason, I tried to do a mentorship program with youth at an elementary school through my church and got denied. And there's just several things that I tried to do, and I kept getting reminded of that man that I used to be.
All right, so now let's talk about Resilient Man. An amazing podcast. I was so humbled and grateful just to be asked to be on the show. And you have an amazing show. Guys, if you're watching this, make sure you check out Resilient Man podcast, available everywhere. So talk about that. What was your thought process in starting the Resilient Man project and also the Resilient Man podcast?
So that conversation that I had with my wife, and I told her, that it was done, I was finished, that I promised her that, that was it. And I did 100%, but I never dealt with anything really. I just kind of focused on my work and was kicking ass at work and making a bunch of money, and then very distant at home. Basically became kind of like a roommate that paid the bills. And through that, we had a conversation that was like, I don't know if I love you anymore. I don't know if this is going to work. Like we're just too, and it was one of the hardest conversations I ever had. I ended up moving into a camper of a guy that I knew, and started to really look internally for the first time ever. This was 2 years ago. And I decided, I kind of came to the conclusion that I'm not nowhere near the man that, from the outside looking in, I'm doing great, but like I'm nowhere near the man that I need to be for my wife, that I need to be for my kids. I'm not. So I lost 50 pounds. I got in shape. I started reading daily. I just completely changed everything. My habit, I started looking at, like, I found some podcasts. Andy Frisella is like one of the first guys that like really spoke to me in that whole personal excellence, everybody's looking for their purpose. Well, your purpose is to be the best that you can be. You know what I mean? Like, and that kind of message resonated with me at a deep, deep level.
Yeah, I mean, his podcast, the FCEO Project, awesome. Guys, if you ever get a chance, it may be salty a little bit. You may hear a lot of F-bombs, but if you ever want to just get down and dirty, check out the FCEO, Andy Frisella and his brother Sal. Amazing podcast.
Yeah, absolutely, man. They did a lot for me in that time, but started developing those daily habits. Found, like I said, a lot of different podcasts, a lot of great information, a lot of great book suggestions and things like that, and started like Atomic Habits and a bunch of different books. And did 75 hard. That was part of that 50-pound weight loss. So through that, you're reading nonstop, and I just really started to find myself. Really started to understand the person that I needed to be for the first time in my life. And it was like the further that I went down that walk, the more and more spiritual I got, and the more and more that things showed up in my life, affirming things and just confirming. And I had, just experience where all this energy came in me one night, and it was just this amazing experience where like my body's like shaking for 2 or 3 minutes when it's over. It was the craziest thing, but I just kept having these experiences. The further I would walk, the more clear-minded I would get. And before you know it, like those small changes compounded over time, and I wake up one day and I'm a completely different person, and not that I by any means have it figured out. And hopefully I'll look back on myself today in 2 or 3 years and say, man, I had a long way to go. I never want to stop growing, and I never want to stop striving to be better. But I would say the last 2 years, man, I've figured a lot of things out. I've done a ton of work inside. Well, I guess it was started really 10 years ago in prison. But I've done this tremendous amount of internal work. I've really started to process through the things that have happened to me. God laid it on my heart that it had all been preparation. Like my life meant something. That victim mentality completely shifted in my life, in my mind. He's like, it's all, you've been through what you've been through to prepare you for what you need to do moving forward. Once that thing kind of came inside of me, Birth the Resilient Man Project was kind of part of that. I'd say that divine message. I really feel like it came straight from the big guy upstairs. And since getting on Resilient Man, it's been amazing. More and more people and more momentum and more accountability, because you're putting everything out there, and it's just been awesome, man. So now I want to, use my story and the things that I've learned from my crazy path and my journey, and to help other men that either maybe about to run up against something, or maybe they're in the middle of something, or maybe they've gotten through something but don't know kind of how to process it or get to the next step, or maybe they've had these things happen and they've forgotten how to connect with their family and connect with their wives. Like I figured out a lot of really cool things over the past 2 years.
All right. Because this is a teaching podcast, not only business, but it's also a teaching podcast. For me, I'm like you, I'm the hug guy. I like to hug. All my friends get hugs. My wife, my kids, my 18-year-old, my 20-year-old son, they always get hugs and kisses when they come through the door. And I think a lot of men, because I can only speak for a man, they're afraid to have that. They're afraid to give the hugs and the kisses, because a lot of us, like me and you, or for me at least, I didn't have that growing up. I didn't have some fathers telling me I love you and I got your back. It's okay. So I think a lot of men are afraid of being vulnerable and, saying, like for me, I put out a post today. I had a bad 3 weeks. I was struggling really hard, but it's okay for me to be vulnerable now, to let people know, I have my good days, I have my bad days. But I think men need to become a little bit more vulnerable. What are your thoughts on that?
Man, I agree 1,000,000%. I think if men understood the power of being vulnerable and vulnerability, they would look at it completely different. And also, I like to say that, when you're vulnerable, you give the person that you're being vulnerable to permission to be vulnerable back. They're just kind of waiting on somebody to go first. And everybody, no matter how great it looks like they have it and how put together their life looks like it is, I promise you, everybody has something on their heart they're going through. Everybody's struggling with something. Everybody wants to get it out, but they just don't have that place, or that safe place, or that safe person. We've lost that part in our society. We've lost that brotherhood aspect, which I think is critical. I think if we can figure out how to get true vulnerability and brotherhood back, I think we can kind of, do a lot to save this country and this world. There's so much power in being vulnerable, man. So
well, I came very close to being one of the 22 last week. I came very, very close, but it was because of my friends, my family, my bride, my wife, my best friend. I think a lot of times guys are too busy being macho instead of saying, honey, I'm struggling.
that's right.
I need you to protect me. I need you to hold me because I'm not having a good day. And I think of a lot of men, a woman wouldn't think of that being a weakness. I think a woman would think of, wow, my husband actually trusts me that much to protect him. So talk about that, because like my wife is my best friend. She's my rock. She's my everything. And when I was feeling, this way last week, she said, I got you. I got your back. I know how you're feeling. It's going to be okay. So do you think it's important for men to give it other or their wives, honey, I'm struggling today. Just hold me. I need you to hold me.
Man,
What are your thoughts on that?
yes, absolutely. Not only about, being macho, but I mean, with your wife, yes, or with your friends, or with the people in your circle. I mean, that you kind of have it all figured out, or that everything's always going great. This, social media life that everybody kind of wants to put on, that everything's great and hunky dory, and that's just not reality. And to have, I've never, I can't even put into words how important it is to have a wife that has my back, that 100% is just there for me no matter what's going on, that will understand and that will help me get through it. 100%, man. Being vulnerable and with your wife, with just being real and honest, and like you just said, I had a bad week, or I haven't figured this part of my life out. I struggle in this area, or whatever it is, man. 100%.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't realize that a lot of highly successful people end up taking their own lives because we all see the houses, the cars, the boats, the jets, but we don't see that person sitting at the kitchen table all alone.
100%. That, and they haven't.
They have all the money around them, but they're still. Some people are so rich, all they have is money. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I think that they've forgotten or lost connection, true intimate connection with their wife, or fellowship with their other men around them. And yeah, also, like, I think knowing your purpose, or having something to pour yourself into that's much bigger than yourself, it is critical to this life. Since I've kind of had that placed on my heart, that it's all been for a reason. It's all been preparation for what's coming. And I've kind of started Resilient Man, and I found this purpose driven piece to my life. Man, that's the key. That is the key, is to put your faith in something bigger than yourself, the big guy upstairs, and then to figure out, like, what is my legacy? What am I going to do to leave this place better than it was when I got here? You know what I mean? Like, and just to find that purpose, man. Money is fine. I mean, I guess you need it to take care of your family. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. But at the end of the day, I think you have to have some sort of purpose.
Yep, and guys, if you're ever wondering what your purpose is, make sure you pick up the book A Purpose Driven Life by Pastor Rick Warren of Saddleback Church. Awesome book. I got it on my audio book on Audible. I listen to it every day just to keep me going. And like I think you said, a lot of us don't have a purpose. A lot of us are just going to work to pay the bills, to pay the house off, but we don't have that big, hairy goal or dream when we wake up in the morning. Like, my goal is to help 1 million people this year. Yeah, that's a big hairy goal, but it gets me up in the morning.
Right.
Moving. It's like, all right, I got people I want to serve. I want to help. I want to save lives. I want to change the world. So tell me where the Resilient Man Project and the podcast is heading in the next year.
Well, we're going to do this virtual challenge, and it's just going to be basically, if you're in that rut, or whatever, and you need something to kind of kickstart you, it's just going to be a 5-day challenge, completely free. And each day is going to be a different speaker, and then we're going to kind of give you a challenge at the end of it. It's going to wind up being like 7 daily, or we're going to call them challenges, hoping that over the course of 30 days they turn into habits, because me and you both understand how important habits are. So it's really just kind of kickstart that, and to let people understand, or like show them the impact that these small habits and these small changes can make. On the back end of that, we're gonna come out with a men's group, some low cost men's group here pretty soon, just about getting back to that brotherhood and connection piece. I'd like to start doing some free local meetups too. I'm going to start doing things like that. And public speaking is where my heart is. Got a couple events lined up, so that's super exciting. Like, that's what gets me going. I cannot wait to kind of, take the next step in that journey. But man, the podcast is fun for sure. I love it. Get to have amazing conversations with people that I never would have gotten to have such as yourself and many, many others. Hearing the stories and understanding there's so many other people out there that have gone through horrible, tragic, whatever, fill in the blank things, yet they have managed to get through it, get to the other side, see the purpose in it, and now they're moving forward in that purpose. Man, it's just a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful network of people, and man, I'm so blessed and fortunate to be. My prayer every day is like, man, Lord, thank you for choosing me for this mission. It's an amazing time of my life and my family's life, and I'm so blessed and fortunate and thankful.
All right, so now where can we find your podcast? Where can we find your project?
Pretty consistent across all platforms. Resilient Man Project, all social media. ResilientManProject.com has links to everything, and then we're on Apple, Spotify, all the big ones. Resilient Man Project. So pretty consistent, pretty simple.
All right, so for the last couple of minutes, also, you're a businessman, and you're a Christian businessman, just like I am, just like my Eric Allen is. He's a Christian Brit. Where we live by a different credo. Where we live, a lot of times it's I'm going to say I'm going to do something. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to over deliver while I do it because I want to do the best job possible. So what is it like? And sometimes it's a struggle being a Christian businessman because a lot of times some stuff you don't want to get involved in because it ain't the right thing. So talk to us about being a Christian businessman and what that's like and what it's doing in your life.
Yeah, 100%, man. That integrity piece is critical. You can't lower your standards or go off course to make an extra dollar or to get a contract that may be the wrong way. Those things just are not something that I want to be a part of. It's not the energy that I want in my life or in my company. I will say that the first year in business, and really 22 was my first full year. Horrible mistakes in the beginning. I had the concept and the idea and could understand the job site and the technical stuff, but didn't really understand how to run a business. So I really struggled. Honestly, it was a really hard year financially for me and my family. Kind of shifted to some residential stuff for a while and really operated from this place of scarcity. Operated from a place of trying to survive the day, trying to survive the month, trying to scrape enough together to pay this, to pay that. Just completely approached 22 in the wrong manner. Took some time off around Christmas, a couple of weeks, and just kind of reset. And I decided I'm going back to the industrial where I belong, where I've always made my money, and changed my mindset completely. Operated from a place of gratitude and abundance. Didn't get all up about every little job, making sure I had to get it. Let me give a discount to get this job. I just kind of got away from all those things. And I mean, things changed pretty much instantly. It's amazing the mindset shift and how quickly things began to change. And this is all within 40 days or whatever. And I'll tell you a quick story and we'll end on this. I called about this contract that it's supposed to have been awarded like a year ago, and I noticed nobody had been doing it. So I reached out to my contact and I said, "Hey, what about this project? I noticed nobody's doing it." He said, "Well, they didn't want to spend the money, so it's been shelved. It was like $500,000, so they didn't want to spend it. I don't know if it'll be done this year, next year, whatever." This is at 10 o'clock in the morning. The project has not been talked about for 8 months. I asked him about it at 10 o'clock in the morning. At 2 o'clock, his boss calls and says, "Hey, this has to be done by March 12th." After sitting there for 8 months on the shelf. So if that's not, I firmly believe that when you're in these struggles and these seasons, like I have been in a certain area of my life in 22, that once you've kind of figured out why you're there and you've learned the lesson that you're supposed to learn, that he'll kind of lead you out of it. And I made that mindset shift. And within a month, landing a $500,000 contract and things are looking completely different. So, if you're out there struggling and in one of those places, man, mindset is so important. And you can say law of attraction or the big guy upstairs looking out for you, however you want to put it. But the energy that you put out and the mindset that you approach things with is your reality. And man, that has proven itself to me so many times. But that was just a glaring example. Nobody talks about something for 8 months. I mentioned it at 10 o'clock, and at 2 o'clock, it's got to be done by March 12th. Like, it doesn't happen. You know what I mean? Like, what's the odds of that happening? Unless it's supposed to be that way.
But also, my friend Russell Brunson wrote a 3-book trilogy, and he talks about how the world is going to give you what you ask for. And if you're competing on price, you can only work your way down to the bottom. It's better to be the highest priced than the lowest price. Because a lot of people want to know, well, why is he the highest priced? Because I give the best. So, guys, if you're struggling with that mentality that, I'm just going to make it, I'm going to just make enough to just pay my bills. Well, that's what the world's going to give you. And like my friend Ed Milet talks about, he talks about the reticular activating system in the mind, that whatever you look for, you're going to find, whether it's success or failure, whatever you focus on, that's what you're going to find, right?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I learned that lesson the hard way. It's been, like I said, 22 was a grind, and man, I'm blown away just at the, practice what you preach. It's the things I say, but you still get caught up in your life trying to survive. You have all these people counting on you. You're just doing the best you can, and sometimes you don't quite know how to handle it. So it goes back to, we don't have it all figured out. I mean, no matter who you see or what you got, everybody has their struggles, and I'm just had one of the toughest years of my life, and now I'm working my way out of it because I learned what I was supposed to learn, changed my mindset, and put my faith where it belonged, and now things look completely different.
Yeah, I love it, guys. So make sure you check out his podcast, Resilient Man Podcast, available everywhere. The Resilient Man Project. Also, guys, like my T-shirt says, I don't know if you can see it today, but it says, "Today I decide." Now, I'm a big Joel Osteen guy, and he always says, "Today you can make the decision to be a victor or the victim." I choose to be the victor. So, guys, if you're struggling today, make sure that you make the decisions that you want to be the victor and not the victim. And start, if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, today is your day. You don't have to live that way. All you have to do is decide, I don't want to live like that anymore. Drop to your knees, say, Lord, I don't know what I'm doing. You do. And you don't need some big prayer. You don't need this, Catholic prayer. All God wants you to have a broken and contrite heart, and you'll see He's going to do miracles in your life.
Yes, sir.
Jonathan, brother, I love talking to you, and I'm so grateful for you. And I can't wait to see what things you got coming up in the next couple of months, because I know you're going to crush it.
Man, thank you so much for having me, dude. You've been such a great supporter of mine since we've met, and man, I can't say enough, man. You're a really genuine, good person, and I'm thankful and proud to know you.
I love it, guys. Like I said, a vertical momentum, the only way to go is up. And I love you guys, and I'm so grateful for you guys. I'll see you on Wednesday. And by the way, if you catch out Wednesday's episode, if you love the band Def Leppard, the drummer will be on our podcast Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So definitely check us out. Jonathan, brother, I love you. Have an amazing week.
Love you too, man. Thank you for having me, Richard.